Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking closely at a detailed report from the Daily Mail. It's about the ongoing legal proceedings involving Sean Diddy Combs.
Right, specifically focusing on the courtroom testimony of Cassie Ventura. This is based on that article you shared.
Exactly. And our aim here is really to get past the headlines, to understand the core allegations and the details that actually came out in court, according to the source.
Okay, so the source itself, just to be clear, is a news article from dailymail.com. It's dated Tuesday, May 13th, 2025.
Right.
And it really zeroes in on Cassie Ventura's account from the second day of the trial. She detailed alleged abuse and sexual coercion by Sean Combs.
So our mission really is to pull out the most significant things from Ventura's reported testimony. We're talking about the specifics of the alleged sexual acts,
Uh-huh.
the timeline of their relationship as it was presented, and, well, the emotional impact she described.
And we need to stress we're sticking strictly to the information in this article. The goal is to give you, the listener, a clear, comprehensive picture of what this one source presented.
Okay, let's unpack this then. The article makes it clear that Cassie Ventura's testimony really landed with some force in the courtroom.
It certainly seems that way. The Daily Mail reports she was visibly pregnant, emotional, and provided what they call harrowing details.
Wow.
And it was also the first time she and Combs had actually been in the same room, the same space, since 2018.
That's quite something. Now, the article highlights some really disturbing allegations, particularly around these freak-offs, as they were termed. Can you elaborate on what she reportedly described?
Yeah, according to the Mail's reporting on her testimony, Ventura described these as orchestrated sexual encounters, things she felt, forced to participate in.
Forced.
That was her testimony. Often involving specific rituals, third parties. She alleged it was all part of Combs's way of exerting control and fulfilling his specific desires.
Including something called his wet fetish.
Yes, exactly. That reportedly involved a kind of routine, starting with oil, touching, then moving to oral sex, and then intercourse. She testified that she, quote, often tried to speed it up.
Which really paints a picture, doesn't it? Someone
Uh,
just trying to get through something they feel trapped in.
Precisely. And the article gives a very specific example in Beverly Hills.
Ah, yes. What were the details shared about that one?
Well, Ventura reportedly recounted an instance at a hotel there where Combs allegedly sort of choreographed her getting into a pool of baby oil.
A pool of it.
Yeah. While wearing apparently an outfit from a sex shop in high heels, she testified she really didn't want to do it, especially in a hotel room, was the quote.
But she felt she couldn't refuse.
Right. She felt unable to refuse, fearing the negative consequences. It really underscores the alleged pressure she felt she was under.
And it wasn't just the oil, though. These freak-offs, they involved a whole process with escorts, too, didn't they?
That's right. Her reported testimony described a process. The first sexual act involved masturbation while looking at each other. She at the escort. The escorted her.
Okay.
Then she'd have to describe in detail what she saw. She stated this was what aroused Combs, fulfilling, quote, his fantasy.
How did she describe that feeling?
She said it was always awkward, especially, describing someone's penis to another man. But she also said it eventually just became normal,
Wow.
normalized.
Yeah, and this would then lead to intercourse. It highlights this really complex dynamic, doesn't it? Voyeurism, objectification, control.
The level of detail she reportedly went into is, well, it's quite striking. What else did she say about Combs' own involvement and the escorts?
She testified that sometimes both the escort and Combs would have sex with her.
Right.
Other times, Combs would apparently just watch. And she also stated that if she had intercourse with an escort, Combs would then demand oral sex from her afterwards.
So, again, this pattern of alleged control over every interaction.
It seems to suggest that, yes. And there was something else very specific mentioned related to the escorts ejaculating.
Yes, that's right. Ventura stated that escorts usually ejaculated only when it was, quote, okay for them per Sean,
Per Sean. So his permission was needed.
apparently. And if they did ejaculate without Combs' permission, they were reportedly paid less.
Okay.
Furthermore, if an escort did ejaculate with permission, Combs allegedly wanted Ventura to put the semen on his body, typically on his chest and nipples, she said.
That just adds another layer, doesn't it, to the unusual and allegedly controlling nature of these encounters.
It certainly does, according to this report.
Now, beyond these freak-offs, the testimony also detailed allegations of violence. What did the article say about that?
Well, according to the Mail's account, Ventura described physical abuse. She stated Combs would, quote, bash me on the head, knock me over, drag me, kick me, stomp me in the head if I was down.
That's incredibly graphic.
It is. She reported injuries like knots on her forehead, busted and swollen lips, swollen eyes, red whites of the eyes, she said, bruises all over her body.
And how often did this happen?
When asked that, she apparently replied, too frequently. It paints this picture of, a pattern of alleged physical violence, maybe used to reinforce dominance.
But it wasn't only physical, was it? There was psychological control mentioned, too.
Yes, definitely. Ventura alleged Combs controlled, well, many aspects of her life. Her career, how she dressed, just generally everything, she said.
She felt she had no say.
Pretty much. She attributed it to being super young, naive, a total people pleaser at the time. She also described his mood swings, how violence could be triggered by seemingly random things.
Like what?
Even just her facial expressions, she testified. And she described something quite chilling about his anger, saying his eyes would turn black, making him unrecognizable.
That sounds terrifying. This reported control over her whole life really highlights the power imbalance she allegedly experienced. Let's just rewind for a second. How did this whole relationship even start? The article mentions a pretty significant age difference.
Yeah, the Daily Mail reports they first met back in 2005. She was 19, he was 39.
Big gap.
Huge. Then in 2006, she signed to his label, Bad Boy Records. She described him initially as, exciting, entertaining, fun, and she acknowledged his influence on her career.
And her own experience level at the time.
She admitted feeling sexually inexperienced right at the beginning of their relationship. So that context is pretty important for understanding those initial dynamics.
And despite that inexperience, the age gap, she did fall in love with him. That's what the article says.
Yes, she stated she really fell in love with him. And she described the early days as fun, but also acknowledged the massive differences in their lifestyles compared to hers.
Right. It highlights how complex it was even early on, before the alleged abuse started. But then, according to the report, things took a darker turn. The control increased, the freak-offs became more common.
That's the picture painted by the Mail's account, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Ventura reportedly recalled experiencing a different side of Combs, describing him as abusive and very controlling.
And this control went beyond just her career.
Oh, yeah. She noted it extended to her appearance, who she even spoke to. And these freak-offs, they reportedly became more frequent, and she felt increasingly obligated, like she had to participate.
And the blackmail allegations.
Right. She also alleged that what she called blackmail material photos and videos from these encounters was used to keep her compliant.
That's a really serious accusation. Using potentially compromising material like that, it speaks volumes about the alleged power imbalance.
It really does.
How did Ventura describe her own emotional state during all this?
She said she felt, quote, disgusted, pretty horrible about myself, and humiliated by the freak-offs. Her voice apparently broke as she testified she couldn't talk to anybody about it.
Just completely isolated.
It sounds like it. She kept coming back to the fear of his violent reactions, saying she wouldn't know what would happen. When his look changed, describing his eyes turning black again. It really underscores the emotional toll these alleged experiences took.
The article also mentions some particularly humiliating acts she was allegedly forced into. Can you detail those? They sound awful.
They do. Ventura testified Combs made her call him Pop Pop.
Pop Pop.
Yes, a name she apparently used for her actual grandfather. She found it weird, she said, and now feels it was disrespectful.
Okay. What else?
She also alleged being forced to get nipple piercings and a clitoral piercing at Combs' suggestion, she said, and he was apparently present when they were done.
Oh, my God.
And, maybe most disturbingly, she described instances where Combs, or sometimes an escort, allegedly urinated on her and in her mouth against her will.
That's horrific.
She gave a specific account of one time where she was allegedly choked and held down during an incident like that. These are deeply, deeply disturbing allegations.
The testimony seems to have gone into incredible, almost graphic detail about the freak-offs, even down to locations and logistics.
Indeed. She reportedly named specific hotel rooms, places in New York, like the Gramercy, the Trump Hotel, the Intercontinental,
Right.
then Miami or Miami Beach, the Mandarin Oriental, Fontainebleau, Setai, and in Los Angeles, the Beverly Hills Hotel, shutters on the beach.
So naming names, naming places.
Exactly. And she also mentioned alleged involvement of others in arranging these meetings. A bad boy executive, Tony Fletcher and Combs' assistants, Christina Coram, and Neil Dominic.
So staff were involved in setting these up, she alleges.
That's what she testified, according to the Mail. She also said they used aliases. She was Jackie Starr, Combs was Frank White or Frank Black.
Jackie Starr and Frank White. It suggests a level of, I don't know, organization, planning around these alleged events.
It does seem that way.
And there were specific items that were always needed, always present.
Yes, the Daily Mail highlights that. The essential supplies were apparently large amounts of Johnson's baby oil.
Baby oil again.
Yes, often heated, she
Wow.
emphasized that. Plus, condoms and Astroglide lubricant. She described the oil as, quote, just as important as everything else, saying they'd pour it all over their bodies to be glistening.
Glistening.
Her word. She also described the encounters as very choreographed, including one incident with a blow-up pool filled with oil.
A blow-up pool.
It-
In a hotel room.
Apparently. And furthermore, she alleged she was expected to participate in these freak-offs, even during her period. The emphasis on specific materials, the choreography,
Yeah.
it really paints a picture of, like, ritualized activity.
Now, the 2016 hotel hallway incident, that's something that actually became public, right? With the video. Did she testify about that?
Yes, she did. Ventura recounted trying to leave a freak-off at the Intercontinental Hotel in Century City.
Okay.
She described Combs allegedly attacking her in the hallway, which seems to align with that surveillance video CNN aired back in May 2024.
What did she say happened?
She testified he grabbed her, threw her to the ground, kicked her, tried to drag her back to the room, took her belongings too.
And she mentioned being worried about her appearance.
Yeah, she said she was particularly concerned about protecting her face and body because she had a movie premiere coming up soon after. That incident, allegedly caught on tape, gives a kind of visual element to her account of the abuse.
Interestingly, the article also brings up testimony from someone else, a male escort named Daniel Phillip. What did he reportedly say?
Right. Daniel Phillip apparently confirmed in his testimony that he was paid to have sex with Ventura while Combs watched.
So, corroboration on that front.
Seems like it. And he also recounted a specific incident at the Essex House Hotel. He said he saw Ventura looking visibly afraid, shaking, after what seemed like a violent encounter with Combs just before he arrived.
What was his reaction?
Phillips stated he was actually attracted to Ventura and was really shocked by how scared she seemed. So having this testimony from an external party, as reported in the Mail, it does seem to lend more weight to Ventura's account.
So, with all of this testimony coming out, what was the defense's response? What's their argument, according to the article?
Well, according to the Daily Mail, Combs' defense team did acknowledge that domestic violence had occurred.
They acknowledged it.
Yes, but they strongly denied the allegations of sex trafficking and racketeering. They characterized the videos of the freak-offs as, quote, adult pornography. And they argued those videos should stay sealed, citing privacy concerns. So it really sets up this direct clash with Ventura's narrative and raises big questions about how the evidence, especially those videos, will be interpreted.
And what about Combs himself, his demeanor in court? Was his family there?
The article notes Combs was present, yes, and that he interacted with his children and his mother, who were also there. It also mentions, kind of as an aside, an alleged threat made by Ventura's husband, Alex Fine, towards Combs at some point. And importantly, the judge is reportedly considering whether to make those freak-off videos public.
So that's still up in the air. It definitely gives you a sense of the atmosphere around these proceedings.
Yeah, intense, I imagine.
Okay. This has been, well, a deeply disturbing account, as presented by the Daily Mail, based on Cassie Ventura's testimony. Let's just quickly recap the key takeaways before we wrap up.
Sure. So we've really walked through Ventura's detailed allegations, the sexual acts involving Combs and paid escorts, the specifics of that alleged wet fetish involving baby oil,
Right.
the specific humiliating acts she described, like the name-calling and the forced piercings, the urination incidents. We also covered her allegations of frequent, severe physical abuse and that pervasive psychological control.
And the timeline, the alleged blackmail.
Exactly. The timeline of the relationship, how it started, how it allegedly devolved, the use of blackmail materials, she claims, and those logistical details, the specific hotels, the aliases, the alleged staff involvement.
Plus the corroborating testimony from the male escort and the defense's position.
Right. We touched on Daniel Phillips' account and how the defense is acknowledging domestic violence but fighting the trafficking and racketeering charges based on this reporting.
So for you, our listener, hopefully you now have a more detailed understanding of the accusations in this really high-profile case, going beyond just the headlines to the specifics of Ventura's reported testimony.
Yeah, the details shared, the baby oil, the piercings, the hotel rooms, the Pop Pop nickname, they really paint a stark, unsettling picture of the account presented in court, as reported here.
And this brings us to a final thought for you to consider. Given the level of detail, the emotional weight of this reported testimony from Ventura,
Hmm?
and also considering the defense's counterarguments about consent, privacy, and the nature of those videos, what does this case, as presented in this Daily Mail article, really reveal about the complexities of power dynamics,
Hmm.
especially in relationships within huge industries like entertainment?
That's a big question. And how might these kind of legal proceedings, whatever the final verdict ends up being, how might they shape our public perception, our understanding of these powerful figures and the alleged dynamics with people who might be in more vulnerable positions? Something to think about.